Hello and welcome to the Crazy Angels podcast. Today we talk about a song about a very beautiful but at the same time haunted place. And the song is called Elliot Bay. Pascal, can you give us an intro to what the song is about?
Elliot Bay is a love song, and it's about two people that just don't fit. They care deeply about each other. It should work, but it doesn't. The underlying theme is that sometimes life just does not work out. Things do not end happily. It's also a love song to a place, as you suggested, Levi, and the place is Elliot Bay, city of Seattle, and Puget Sound, which connects Seattle and Elliot Bay to the Pacific Ocean. It's a haunted landscape. Elliot Bay and Puget Sound are extremely deep. And the environment also is all moon colors. So it's purples and indigos, the deep evergreen trees, the deep blue of the sea. And it's often misty and rainy. And then suddenly the clouds will part and there'll be a shaft of sunlight and everything is bathed in pinks and oranges and golds. And then it's misty and purple and indigo again. And on the land, it's the deep evergreen trees that I mentioned and moss everywhere. And then a redwood tree that just reaches to the sky. And in this haunted environment, you also have sounds. The ferry boats that take everybody around have this melancholy call, and in the song I call it a bass clarinet. So it's a haunted landscape full of myth and bittersweetness, and that's really a metaphor for this love affair. And I chose a jazz ballad form, and David and the band turned it into this lush, beautiful arrangement that mirrors the lushness of the Northwest, the great Northwest, and Puget Sound and Elliot Bay and all the mythical animals and indigenous stories that I talked about. So with that, I'll pass the baton to David.
Without further ado, here is, well, let's have just a listen. I guess let's start at the chorus, and then we'll listen to the verse with the bass clarinet. Here we go.
And if you walked down that pier, could I swallow my pride? Would we embrace? Would something survive? The ferry boats sound like a bass clarinet. I never could read your heart's alphabet. We win the award, our own statuette. Outstanding performance in a comic duet.
So yeah, there it is. As far as the arrangement goes, this is Davide Sambrota and Luca Camarota on the guitars, Davide playing the piano, me on drums and bass / arranging. It's like a jazz ballad. So for me, this chord progression all the chords in this song really kind of inspired, I think, a lot of the arranging that took place, you know. And yeah, Pascal, you know, really knows. He really knows his tonal harmony, and that it just makes everything easy, you know, as far as the arranging goes. And you know, we've got these, you know, fluid string parts. So we've got the violins, and you know, we're always putting in this modulation in here, you know, changing the volumes so that there's movement. It's not just static, right? And of course, you know, you put your cellos and the, you know, other strings below. Again, always with movement here. We're subtly panning. So you've got, if you just listen to the cello and the violins, you know, they're just slightly set apart. So you've got the cellos a little bit on the right side, violins a little bit on the left side. So, you know, violins are stage right. Just to give a little separation, natural separation about where they would occur. And, you know, it's funny because I talk about this often about, you know, especially when I'm teaching or giving seminars, about the fact that the technology that we have is something new, really new in music. And I think that, you know, if Beethoven were alive today, he would be making like acid drum and bass music, you know, like I don't think he would have been writing symphony. It was, you know, seriously, like, anyway, but so, you know, it's something new, and we should use the technology as something new. And this is, you know, when we think of like the history of electronic music, the first musician of electronic music is Jimi Hendrix, because he was the first guitarist to use electricity as a musical instrument, right? So the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Muddy Waters just electrified what they were doing on acoustic guitars and just made it electric. And when the very first guitar pedal, I forgot what it's called, but the very first guitar pedal ever was used by Keith Richards on Satisfaction. That's actually the first ever guitar pedal, like actually on the ground guitar pedal. And it's iconic, you know, but that still is not really electronic music the way Jimi Hendrix did it. So he's really the first, because he uses, as in other words, you can play dun dun da 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 on the acoustic guitar. You cannot play what Jimmy does on the acoustic guitar. It doesn't work. So he's the first electronic musician, the first modern, I would argue, and they emerged around the same time, is Trent Reznor and Aphex Twin, if anybody knows Aphex Twin. So those are the guys, they're just like resetting everything. Like, sure, you could argue Chicago house and Detroit techno, but not quite the way Aphex Twin and Nine Inch Nails did it, you know. This is my opinion. Here's my point in all of this. What does this have to do with Pascal? Well, you're like, where's he going with this one? So what I always say is, when I talk about orchestration, I specifically say, don't worry about how you pan if it's what a real orchestra does, which is, this is doing what a real orchestra does. You know, if you're in the audience, you hear the violins more on the left side because they're all on the left side of the stage. They're stage right. And you hear the double basses and cello more, cello. I'm Italian, I gotta say the long L, because it means something very different. If you don't. Anyway, if you're in the audience, you hear the cellos and double basses more on the right side. So I always say to students or in seminars, like, don't worry about that stuff if you're making a video game soundtrack, because your job is to make the game more fun to play, not to accurately represent what an orchestra does. That's not your job. And nobody cares if they're violently blowing up, assaulting with a rifle. Nobody cares about the orchestration. However, in a nice soft jazz ballad, it matters.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to do is make music as expressive and lush and and realistic. So in some cases it matters, in other cases it doesn't matter. In this case it very much matters, right? And so, you know, when you get to these like instrumentals here,
the ferry boats sound.
In these cases, it does matter. And when you hear, like, these are, you know, clearly live guitar parts, they don't sound fake or MIDI, as we say, because they're not. Right? Ah, those beautiful imperfections. It's slightly out of tune. And so, you know, when you hear those beautiful guitar parts along with the live touch of Davide, I mean, this technically is MIDI, but it's still performed live. It's super tight. And he's doing his job. He's supporting. He's just supporting. Why? Because Luca has the show here at this point. Oof. And just those three parts, man, cover a lot. So then when you start adding on top of all that some, you know, MIDI string parts and some horn parts, you get this. And those strings don't sound fake. They sound quite live, if I do say so myself. However, if you listen to them on their own, it's you would question it. Like I would question it and say, I don't know. They could be live. I'm not sure if they are. Oh, but listen to those dynamics. Maybe they are. But when you put that together with everything,
the ferry boats sound.
And so, and you know, it's Pascal and I were, you know, talking about Rick Rubin, who said that I think you're allowed 5 mistakes on any album. Was it 5?
Eight is too many. Five is just right.
Okay, got it. So I just now, years after this album has been released, just heard something that's not a mistake, but it could be an improvement, which is the rim shot. I just realized this could sound a lot better with some more reverb on there. So let's see here. It's a little bit more reverb on there, you know?
Yeah.
And softer in the mix. So if we put that out now. There. So it's softer.
Evergreen trees.
See, the way it was before was a little too loud for me. A little too loud for my ears. So see that after the fact?
Yeah.
I'm still, and you know, but here's the funny part about this that I'll say. You can never make art perfect. You will always hear something that's like, I could have done that better. And this is why Picasso said that a painting is never finished. And the minute you call it finished, you've robbed its soul. You've robbed the painting of its soul. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but it's so true, because we always, you know, and then Ben Burt, who is the sound designer, made all the sound effects in the Star Wars universe. He said that films are not released, they escape. Because he said, like, you'll literally work on something until somebody grabs it from your hands. You will literally keep going. And I think this is the artist's mentality. Ben Burt is one of the greatest artists of all time, because, you know, I saw Rick Beato video the other day talking about the most famous musician of all time. And he's like, it's not the Beatles, it's not Taylor Swift, it's John Williams. Right? Because more people have heard bum, bum, ba, 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 da, than any other music ever. And he's right. Well, if that's true, the greatest living sound designer is Ben Burt, because everybody knows. Like, you know what that means. Like, if I do that, you're like, okay, lightsaber, right? So that's it. That's all I got for you.